All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Axe of the Blood God, a RPG podcast where I, Nadia Oxford, have been thrust into the spotlight as the host at kind of the last minute. So we're just going to be careening like there's a bumblebee in the car. I'm going to do my best. Everyone's going to do their best. Kat's not here. She went out to get cigarettes again. She's really got to give that up. So for now, I've got one of my co-hosts here, the lovely Eric Van Allen, who is not feeling so well today.
I'm gonna get through it. Don't worry. We're gonna fight through this illness and just really turn on the gas and produce a podcast, and I will die afterwards.
Kind of like an octopus, just kind of you live, you die, you mate, you die. You live, you make a
What a way to
podcast, you
go.
die.
That's how I want to go
Isn't
as an
that weird? Like,
octopus.
why are octopi sentient? That's all I do. Anyway, I'll talk about animals some other time. Let's talk to our special guest and say hi, Jesse Vitelli.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. This is like gonna be fun. So I we are
Hell
going to
yeah.
talk
Fun
all
question
about
mark.
question
Huh?
mark. I'm Ron Burgundy. We are going to talk Dragon's Dogma 2. We are going to talk a little bit about Visions of Mana, our impressions of that. No, not mine. I didn't get to play, but Eric and Jesse did. And we'll probably talk about the card game I keep mispronouncing. Uh, Baltaro? Balatro. There.
Balto.
Balto. Balto. Was that the name of the
Balatro.
husky? Balatro.
Balatro.
The shit with the jokers. That's the one. Okay, so
That should be the new name. You with the jokers.
all right. So apparently, if you like this podcast, you're supposed to give us money. We'd appreciate that. Just go to bloodgod.com/Patreon. No, sorry. Patreon.com/bloodgodpod. Our URL is bloodgodpod. I think everything is bloodgodpod. If you
Mhm.
want to give us something good or communicate with us, bloodgodpod is probably your in. My Twitter and Blue Sky is Nadia Oxford. I'm really trying to get off Twitter. It's got to the point where, okay, the train wreck's not fun anymore. It's more dangerous than anything. So I think
Yeah.
I'm going to ditch. So Blue Sky, all of that. I'm Nadia Oxford. Go ahead and follow me if you like. Eric can be found at Seamoosi. That's Seamoosi.
Thank you for
Jesse, I forget.
imitating the Midwestern
Oh,
accent when you did
who
that.
said I imitated
Oh,
it? Who said it's not Canadian?
Oh, okay. Yeah. You invoked
Jesse,
it.
how about you? What's your email? Sorry, your URL again. Whatever they call it these days.
do not contact me. No, I'm just kidding. It's if you just type in Jesse Vitelli, you'll find me. That's like most of my handles are just my name.
All
So if
right.
you type my name into Google, I got the best SEO results of any Jesse Vitelli out there. So
Oh, Muzzle Top. Congratulations. This day and age, God knows. So, yeah, also, if you want to support us at the $10 level, we have Pantheon episodes for you. Pantheon of the Blood God, where we determine the best of the best in terms of RPGs. This coming up shortly, we're going to be doing our discussion of Suikoden 2, and I think we all know where that's going to wind up, but it's Suikoden goddamn 2. We all want to talk about it. Do we have a winner for the next Pantheon yet, Eric?
I believe it ends on the 30th today. Yeah. So, we do have a winner, and by a narrow margin, Near Automata has emerged victorious over Ease 8 Lacrimosa of Donna to become our Pantheon pick. Uh,
y'all
it
did
was
good.
it was neck and neck there for a while.
Yeah,
I think it
that's
was
why I
like
asked.
five
Wasn't
votes
sure.
apart at some point.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
So ease is definitely a hot topic. We will certainly be revisiting
The
Mr. Adol, who has
the
the unfortunate name in the future.
the thing I was hearing from the people, I have my
People's
ear to the
voice,
ground. I listen to the people, and the
of
people
course.
listen to me.
Boots
Uh,
on the ground.
yeah, yeah. Is that this was apparently not the ease game that some people wanted
Oh.
elevated. Some people want some earlier ease, is my
Uh,
understanding. So maybe we do an ease month because I believe Ease 10 Nordics is out later this year. So maybe
yes.
that will be the right time to do an ease month.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I loved 9. I might be alone in that one, but I just adored all the zip line crap going on in 9. But ease is for another day. Today we are going to talk about Dragon's Dogma 2 and Visions of Mana. Where shall we start?
Ooh.
Let's
Pick.
do Dragon's Dogma 2. Okay, so I just started playing. I haven't really done much in the way of quests, but I'm kind of getting my feet under me with sub quests. And I made a really sad lion man by accident. He has Ichiban's hair, and he's like a snow leopard, and it looks really weird. And I can't remember how to change anyone's appearance in this game. I'm hoping to figure it out soon, but I just want to dye his hair a little bit better. I have a pawn who's a lioness, and I met a pawn on the road who's like, "Hey, old friend, I'll help you find this jerk who got lost." I said, "Okay, sure, you can join me." And then he starts talking about how his old master fucks, like just like he
Yeah.
had so many people in his bedroom. Like, oh, cool. I
Hmm.
met you for met you
Never,
5 minutes
the
ago.
same person. It's always
Never the
different
same
people.
person. Oh, to each their own. It was pretty funny. So I want to kind of go over what the story is for Dragon's Dogma. How does the universe work? Because I feel like I still have no idea. Like, what are pawns? What are the Arisen? What is the Arisen?
So, like, top down vision for anyone who has not played Dragon's Dogma, this might be their first. Dragon's Dogma 2 is largely in the same vein as the first one, where you have the Arisen, where the Arisen is
Right.
someone who's had their heart stolen by the dragon. And this kind of marks them as the hero of the land. They are going to become this great person. Everyone kind of looks up to the Arisen. As they point out, being the Arisen also means that you like take the throne and stuff like that. So basically, dragon comes over, touches your heart, you're special now. You are now the Arisen. Classic way of deciding. What's the line from Monty Python? Like a government based on watery tarts lobbing scimitars or
Uh,
whatever. Like,
yeah, like a
uh,
watery woman with swords.
yeah. So it's that, and then pawns are kind of weird, and actually this is a reason I like Dragon's Dogma 2, is that it's kind of grappling with the fact that pawns are strange and pawns are very odd. Is that pawns are these, they are human, but they are distinctly alien too,
Yes.
because they kind of live in these rifts. They go between the rifts and stuff like that. They're multiversal beings that just live to serve the Arisen. And pawns are like they look and sound and talk human, but they're also just like completely devoted to the Arisen. And I think it's really cool that in this game they're kind of tackling what would it be like if they kind of existed in society, because the first
Right.
game didn't really do that. First game was very much like pawns are just kind of a gameplay mechanic, they're here.
Mm.
Dragon's Dogma 2 is very much like incorporating pawns into the story in a way that I find very interesting. But so the Arisen and the pawns need to go kill the dragon. They have like
Yes.
been chosen. They must go fight the dragon. That quest will take them on a variety of different situations. And one of the things I love about Dragon's Dogma, especially Dragon's Dogma 2, which I think it's doing very, very well, is that you kind of just get told to go places and you will run into a lot of things on your way to said places. So early on, you meet this dude named Brant, and he gives you kind of different quests and things like that. He's like, go kill these monsters over here, and go
Mm.
investigate this thing over here, and go look into this thing over here. And it will take you to all these different places in that first large hub open world that you're in.
Right.
But on the way, you will definitely find things to do. You will get up to shenanigans on your way there. And this is a really good game for, I'm setting out on one quest, but I'm going to end up doing so many other things on the way there that I will sometimes even forget why I was on this path in the
Yeah.
first place. Or I have that moment where I've just, I'm like drenched head to toe in blood. There's like a dead cyclops and a griffin and like 15,000 hobgoblins all lying around me. My pawns are like barely walking, and I'm like, oh man, okay. So I got to go find that note, huh? And, it's really really great for that. I'm loving Dragon's Dogma 2. I think it's a very strong successor to the first game. I also find a lot of the discourse around this game fascinating, but we can get into that after we kind of talk about our
It's a
own
nightmare.
personal impressions.
Yeah, that's a quick question. Can you lock onto an enemy? I feel like I'm missing
No.
something there. Oh, okay, so it's not just me.
Some abilities have like a soft lock on. Like
Uh-huh.
some abilities will kind of tether to an enemy, but like there's no traditional lock on in this game.
Okay.
Combat is messy in a way that proves to be pretty fun. I think
It
because
does
of
seem
that.
that way. Yeah.
Jesse, what has your experience with Dragon's Dogma 2 been so far? Because you have rolled credits at this point, like you
Yeah,
reviewed it and
I'm on my new
everything.
game plus
Yeah.
playthrough. So I reviewed the game for GameInformer.com if you want to go read my review.
Hey, hey.
Um, I am just like head over heels with this game. I like to think I'm like a pretty tough critic when it comes to reviewing games. And this game just like I don't know, it's something about it just really grabbed me. I think it's the fact that it's not afraid to just be difficult, but not in like
Mhm.
a FromSoft way where it's like, oh, these boss fights are really difficult. These enemies, this world is unforgiving. Like Dragon's Dogma 2 is obtuse, but it's obtuse in like a way that pushes you to think outside the box. Like you look at a lot of modern game design, and I think of like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? That is a game that doesn't want you to miss anything. That is a game that is going to signpost everything for you. And it's going to be like, hey, if you go to a new area and you come back, you can still do all the side quests. You can still do everything. Like we're going to very clearly mark the point of no return in that game. Like, and then you have Dragon's Dogma 2, which is like, you're going to miss stuff. We're intentionally going to like throw things away if you move on too fast. Like we really want you to take your time. We want you to talk to every NPC. We want you to really like put your detective hat on in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And it is so just like unabashedly just this is a 360 game that we put on modern hardware
Yeah.
design wise, right? And I love it for it. It's like janky in all the right ways, and it's just like I was in a fight with some skeleton mage at night one night, and I've shown Eric this video, but it's like it created like a tornado,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just stay away from it. And it like whipped me into the tornado, and my body is like ragdolling everywhere, like you would see in like a PS2 360 era
Yeah.
sort of game. And I'm just like, because I haven't hit the ground yet, the game hasn't like determined that like, oh, you are dead. So I'm
Mhm.
just like mashing the heal button, and I'm healing through my body like ragdolling
Healing
around.
through a tornado.
Yeah, and then
Southerners
when I
take
finally
note.
hit the ground, I have full health, and I'm like, all right, I survived because I ate a bunch of like fruit while I'm whipping through this tornado, and it's just the game is like funny, like physical. It has like a physical level of humor to it that is like, man, this is just so good. It really is.
It
Um,
strikes me as one of those. Sometimes you get Japanese games that are very dry,
mhm.
and it has that just that sense of humor.
It's also very systems driven. Like I was
Yeah.
talking with some folks last night, Jesse included, who I was saying like I feel like a lot of our big games in the last 5 years have been very systems driven. Games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, games that have a story. Yes, there is a story in Dragon's Dogma 2, but the thing you end up talking about later on when you're, do people talk around water coolers anymore? Is that a thing?
That's what I was wondering to myself not that long ago.
the
Sure,
the stories you
the
end up
figurative.
sharing, yeah, the stories you end up sharing later with your friends are like, I did this crazy thing. I got on the back of a griffin and it flew me to a different part of the map. Like Jesse was showing me a little, like a literal video of that happening, and it's an incredible game for what it manages to put in the world and let you interact with and find and discover. I'm constantly amazed at the clever solutions that I can find to different things. There's a bit in the game that I don't want to spoil at all because it's very very funny, but basically the game presents one solution that is meant for like people to find, and I found it and the game was like, you got the solution. Good job. And then later on, I went back to said place and I found by complete happenstance a different thing, and that was when I discovered that, oh, there was a second solution to this quest.
Mhm.
And the other one was for dummies. It was like, hey, yeah, we put that out there so that way anybody who stumbles across it just thinks that they like got the solution and they're good. And only like people who actually are who we're looking for are going to find this second solution and prove themselves worthy. And I was like, yeah, man, that would have been so embarrassing if anybody, I never did that. But can you imagine being that guy that found that other solution and walked away thinking he was smart? Yeah, couldn't be
What
me
a
though.
gifted individual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That guy. No, it was incredible because I was like, yeah, this game is unafraid to call me a dumbass. like
Yeah.
you really thought that was it? You really thought that was the answer? I've solved quests in such wild, interesting ways that don't feel like they should, and they don't feel necessarily natural. Like Jesse was saying, this isn't Rebirth where it's going to kind of guide you towards like, here's what the paths are, here's how you do things. Like, I figured out that I could solve a quest where two different people wanted the same item, and I went to somebody and made a forgery of it. And so I
Mhm.
Yeah.
gave the forgery to one of them and gave the real one to the other, and I got both quest rewards.
Hey.
But it turns out that if you give the forgery to somebody who's like smart, they'll try and get it appraised, so that I had to go bribe somebody to be like, just tell them it's real, just tell them it's real, it's cool, and I had to keep bribing them. They were like, I don't do, come on man, like I'm a professional. And I'm like, yeah, but like look at how much gold I'm putting on the table right now. And it was like a really organic, natural moment of, I couldn't believe a game was having this like conversation with me as a player.
Right.
I adored
Right.
it. It was fantastic. And this was all stuff like side quests that I just stumble across in the open world. Not like, well, I think one of those ties into a main story quest, but like other ones are just like, here's this stuff that you can just find and encounter and run into, and it's so good.
When you go to the forgery place, I don't know if you've looked at those items, but they're all their names. Like this game has like in the text is also very funny. Like if you try to make forgeries, it's like, oh hey, these don't work exactly as you might think. Like they might not work exactly the same way. So like a wake stone, which is used to revive you, was called a woke stone, and it's like it might work. I don't know.
They're
And
making
it's
the
like it's just
freaking
like the little
stones
thing.
woke.
Like a Sony or a Panasonic TV. Panasonic.
It's just like the little things in that game that they just add up. Like it's a lot of little things that just constantly keep you just like, damn, what this game's funny.
The woke stone is so funny.
It's very funny.
The stone that makes you woke.
Was it worth it to keep bribing someone for this quest reward?
I mean, yeah, it ended up being profitable in the end. If it had not worked out, then I would have been attacked by the town guard, and
Hey,
that
you
would
could
have
take them.
been another complication because I was trying to sneak through a gate at the time, and I didn't need that heat on me, you know. But
Stop right there, criminal scum.
I think
That's
that's.
another moment that has a lot of different ways you can go about it,
Mhm,
specifically the gate.
mhm.
There are multiple ways to get past that. And again, it's like you talk to some NPCs, you find a letter, you're like, oh, I could do this, or you could go over here and grab this item that'll let you through. It's like again, it's just however you want to carve your path through that world is just lets you.
Yeah, so far I'm having a pretty good time with it. There's something about it that feels, I don't want to say loose, but just like less pressure on you to, as you say, go places. Like I finished FF7 Rebirth, absolutely loved it. But this game, Dragon's Dogma 2, has a very different feel to it.
Mhm.
Not as rigid. And I don't mean like FF7's rigid in a bad way. I just mean they have a certain experience that they want you to have. And Dragon's Dogma is much more, hey, if you go out without pants, that's not my lookout.
I think the thing I keep thinking about is there's such a rich history of RPGs in ye olden days. If we had Felipe or somebody on here, they'd be
Oh,
yelling at
yeah.
me right now. But like RPGs that were very much trying to just simulate a tabletop setting, right? Like born out of the idea that you can have this world that just feels alive and interactive, and the stories you make are not ones that are necessarily pre-scripted and pre-laid out, but
Right.
they're the stories that you make by just interacting with this world. Again, very systems driven. And Dragon's Dogma 2 feels like a 3D game trying to capture that life, that energy. And I mean, again, it's not the first game to do this, although Dragon's Dogma 1 at the time was very, I think, ahead of the game in that respect. So
Right.
in some ways this feels like Itsuno and the team really saying like, hey, we were right the first time. We were just
Yeah.
early. And I will say there are some issues I've had with this game, mostly around like optimization. I think this game
Hmm.
is it is struggling to run at times, especially when I'm in the big cities and stuff like that. It's like, oh, calm down
Yeah,
now.
PS5 is okay. I think it's 30 frames locked.
But that's also the thing that I find fascinating, because this game has obviously taken on a lot of popularity. It's gotten really, really popular in a way that Dragon's Dogma 1 did not for a long time.
Yeah.
Like DD1 was always a cult classic for the people who knew, and it would spread by word of mouth. And when you do that, you kind of have the ability for someone to, they're going to tell you about it and they're going to like say up front, like, okay, it's going to feel a little bit dated, a little bit, like out there. It's going to like push back on you a little bit. This is not even Elden Ring. Even Elden Ring, I think, does push back on you a little bit, but not in the ways that DD1 and DD2
Yeah.
do. Dragon's Dogma 2 has found new popularity. It's also found a lot of people that I think aren't meeting it where it's trying to do something. A lot of people seeing stuff like the microtransactions are a different thing. I think that just sucks. I think that's Capcom trying to shove microtransactions in a place where they
do it
shouldn't
in
belong.
every game.
Yeah.
Resident Evil
they've
has
always,
it. DMC5
and-
has it. Like,
and-
they've always done it.
And that's not to say it's like a good thing. It's always a dumb, stupid thing. And I think a lot of people were pointing out how pointless the microtransactions are in this
They
game.
really
and-
are.
And that even like further highlights how it's just like this silly subversion of what the game is actually trying to do. It's not some I've seen wild conspiracy theories about like the fast travel in Dragon's Dogma 2 is bad because they want you to buy fast travel stuff, and it's like that's not the case. If you play DD1, you would know that's not the case. Yeah.
I think they're also one-time purchases.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't bought them, but I've read
yeah,
up
I
on
don't
them.
know, but
I don't know who would buy them.
the consensus seems it's like, oh, you buy this one time. So it's like
Yeah.
they made it limited so you could buy one additional fast travel token for 99 cents. I don't buy that.
It's silly. It's dumb. But that stuff aside, there's also the stuff about like the Dragon Plague, which was like the hot topic last week. Well, when we were at PAX, it felt like everybody was talking about the Dragon Plague and what was happening there.
I heard something about the clap.
The clap?
Something about gonorrhea.
Yeah.
Oh, the dragon
Someone was-
crabs. Yeah. No. And for those at home who don't know, like there is a plague that your pawns will start to talk about that's like, hey, when pawns get this, their eyes will glow red and they'll start to like disobey their arisen, and eventually they will like start murdering people indiscriminately.
Cool.
And this can happen, and people have had their save files run into things where they go to sleep, and while they're asleep, their pawn murders everyone in the town. Just kills everyone.
No one is safe.
Like a whole city wiped out. That to me is sick as hell.
That's
Is
terrifying.
so cool. I love that. But a lot of people, I think, maybe go into this expecting a Skyrim type situation or something where it's like,
We
okay,
can fix it.
I'll just roll back my save and whatever. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, this like Dragon's Dogma is very much about like you're going to make choices in the moment and they're going to have consequences, and you can kind of roll back a little bit, but you can't always roll back. It's the idea of like the things you do matter. The situations that you run into, the stories that you have are important. And part of that importance is like rolling a D20 on the table. Sometimes you roll an @1. And that is an important part of the storytelling of a good RPG. And so I love the Dragon's Plague. I think it's so sick. I get why some people don't like it, but I want to encourage people who hear that and are like, I don't know. First of all, you're gonna know when your pawn has Dragon Plague. Like their eyes will
It's
be
clearly
turning red.
signposted. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
tell you about it. Also, the way you like stop Dragon Plague is hilarious because you just pick your pawn up and run to the ocean and throw them into it, and it kills them. And then when they come back, they're cured. It's great. I'm telling you this now, both as a PSA for if you get it, and also because it's hilarious to pick your pawn up and throw them into the ocean. But I also haven't run into this in like the probably about 12 to 15 hours I've played so far of Dragon's Dogma 2. Jesse, did you ever run into Dragon Plague?
So I was in a weird position since I was reviewing it. There was not a large pool of pawns to pull from.
Right.
Because the other thing is like it is like given through pawns. So like if you have a pawn in your party that has
we should explain
it
the
could
pawn
give-
system. We haven't explained the
Yeah.
pawn system yet.
yeah, okay, so let's roll it back then.
Yeah.
Pawns. They are basically your party members. Like that's kind of the role they fill. And you go to these rift stones and they're all player made. So when you start up the game, you'll make your character, and then a little bit ways into the story, you'll make your pawn. And your pawn is just I made Sephiroth 2. Like I just made a character
like the
that looks
two.
like discounts. I tried to make a discount Sephiroth, but it didn't fit. But so your pawns act as sort of like your main pawn is sort of like your buddy, your person. Like they're gonna They're going to be with you in the story and they're going to do everything. And then you can hire two additional pawns, which are what the other players made. And you go into these rift stones because, like Eric had said earlier, pawns kind of exist like multiversal. They kind of traverse the worlds and they can go to other people's games.
Yeah.
And so you could pick up two other pawns and for me I had a sorcerer, a mage, and a fighter. And I was like, cool, that's like my rounded out party because I'm a thief, I got my sword guy, and I got my two magic people. We're
Hmm.
good to go. Um and that being said, like your personal pawn, you can customize and change vocation, your jobs,
Mhm.
and you can do a lot. You can even change the look of them later on in the game if you get the right thing. But they really are your party members, and they will help you in like a tremendous amount of ways in this game.
Hmm.
Whether it's like if your pawn had traveled with like someone else, let's say, they can come back and be like, "Oh, I was in this area with another adventurer. Like,
Yeah.
I know of
Yeah.
a treasure chest over here," and you can follow them, and they'll show you a secret treasure chest, or a cave, or a city, or something you haven't experienced yet. Or sometimes you're doing a quest, and your pawn's like, "Oh, I've already done this quest. Like, I'll show
Mhm.
you where to go. Like, follow me. Let's go." And I'm like, "Oh, that's neat." I had a moment where I had a fighter pawn that has like the sword and shield, and one of the abilities is that the shield will like you can like launch people, like they'll run up and
Oh.
your pawn will like throw them up. And there was a
Nice.
chest on a cliff, and my pawn like came down and like was like, "Come over here," and like launched me up onto the cliff to get the treasure chest. And I was like, "Oh, this is like a really smart implementation of like combat skills that are also used in just the wild."
Yeah. Yeah.
And they really double down on like what the pawns can do, what they're willing to do, and also sort of this reward system for other people picking up pawns as they go along, because you might get a pawn that speaks a language you don't speak, and then
Hmm.
you can interact with a whole community of people that you currently their text would not be in English, and they're like you would not understand anything they are saying. But if you have a pawn that has that skill, now you can interact with a whole new area of the game you couldn't previously.
Right.
um,
That's
yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah,
those are
it's a
fun.
very open-ended game, which
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to stumbling around in it some more. It's definitely one of those games that's great if you're a curious person and like to get into trouble by experimenting. So I personally am enjoying it very much. I haven't gotten too far yet though, so I will probably reserve more judgment for later. Eric, is there anything you want to add to Dragon's Dogma 2 discussion?
Yeah, just a last thought. Friend of the show, Red Valentine, has also been playing this game. I was posting about it on Blue Sky the other night and posited that this is a cozy game. And want to agree with that because there's something about how this game captures the idea of you and your party are going to set out on an adventure. You're going to put up camping sites. You're going to run into things you didn't expect to run into. You're going to find new things along the way. You're going to discover stuff together. I think it is somehow, hear me out, somehow the best Lord of the Rings game that we've ever
Hmm,
had because it
that's
reminds me
interesting.
of the Fellowship specifically, the way that you set out on this journey and you don't just walk over land. It's I think of like the back half of Game of Thrones and things like that where they're like, okay, that those people are moving over there. We'll see them next episode. Let's cut to somebody else who's doing something. And like Fellowship
Hmm.
is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie because you get to see the journey and the adventure and the things you run into along the way. It's a very like classic fantasy role playing game in that sense. And I get that for Dragon's Dogma. I get that feeling of, oh man, we just like I was saying that situation earlier, we just killed like that Cyclops and Griffin and so many hobgoblins, and you go put down a tent and you put some meat on the fire from the things that you've just killed, and it cuts to like a full on FMV thing of a
Yeah,
steak grilling because Capcom was like, we need to film real meat being cooked. We can't render this. It's got to look delicious. And then you get your buffs and you go to sleep and you wake up and you set out fresh on your new journey, and it's an adventure. It makes me feel like I'm on an adventure, and like Baldur's Gate 3 did that as well in a
right.
different way. I think it captured the scale and the enormity of a quest very well, and the feeling of humble beginnings and starting at level 1 and eventually getting to the point where you were fighting, just the wildest stuff ever.
Hmm.
uh, I think Dragon's Dogma captures that feeling of I'm going to set out on a quest. I'm going to stop along the way. I'm going to have a campfire with my bros. And yeah, it weirdly feels in conversation with Final Fantasy 15 as well because of that.
Ah,
But I like campsites are such an important part of role playing adventures to me, and Dragon's Dogma 2 gets that and gets it in a way that I think games don't routinely get it, you know? So you think about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and their answer to the tent, the campsite, was Cloud puts a cushion on a bench.
yeah, I
And it's
love that. Love
silly,
it when
it's
he just
funny, I like it,
just
but
whips it out.
it is. I feel like we're clowning on Rebirth a lot on this pod. I'm not. I like
No,
It's
I
just
Rebirth a
love
different
lot.
Rebirth.
schools of design. That's
Yeah,
all it is.
There,
It's,
yeah,
it's
that's all.
different schools of design.
fascinating that these games came out next to each other because they do feel like two very different approaches to RPGs, and it's interesting to compare and contrast them. So, yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2. I really really like it. I'm looking forward to playing more of it.
Yeah, so am I, and that is our discussion on Dragon's Dogma 2 so far. Let us move on to a game that I'm very curious about but did not play, Visions of Mana. And are we going with Mana or Mana? I'm going with Mana. I will not judge you. Just tell me what playing the game was like, please.
Mana.
Mana! Visions
Visions
of
of Mana.
Mana! Just screw everyone up.
Yeah. So Jesse, we both played Visions, right? We both
Yeah.
sat down and played ye old action
I
RPG.
played it wrong and had to do the demo again.
Play it wrong.
We were supposed to like change jobs or something in the second demo, and I totally just ignored that advice. And then a very nice PR person had to come over to me and be like, "Hey, can you run that again? We'll like show you what you did wrong." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I played through the demo more than once.
Nice.
It was really funny because in my demo, I was playing and then did an interview with the series producer. Meanwhile, friends of the show, John Carson and Lucas White were over there playing, and Lucas was just reloading the demo over and over again to like frame data that thing, and I don't think they expected someone to do that. And Lucas was just like, "Oh, that's sick. If I do this and then this and then this, I can get like a re-stagger and a combo up into the air." And people were just like, "Oh man, I don't think we expected this level of dedication in here today." It was really fun to watch. But yeah, Visions of Mana is, so to preface this, I know of Mana. I understand what Mana is. I have not sat down and played
Understand the
a
essence
Mana
of
game.
Mana.
Yeah, I've not sat
It's the
down and
live
played a
stream.
Mana game yet. I actually wanted to put Mana on our Pantheon for this month because the month's theme was action RPGs. And then we were like, well, Visions is coming out later this year, so we'll probably reserve Mana games for that. But I think I like Mana games. I think I vibe with them. They're so
You
cozy.
should.
They're
They're
comfy.
very easy to vibe with.
They're
I
very
mean,
like, they're cozy in a different way from Dragon's Dogma 2 that we were just talking about. Where Dragon's Dogma 2 is like cozy, like sitting around a campfire cozy. This is like, I just woke up on Saturday morning and I'm eating cereal and watching cartoons, like that kind of cozy. Like I just put on the WB Kids block and there's this anime I've never heard of called Visions of Mana, and I'm digging it. I'm vibing with it. It's fun. It's silly. I didn't get much of what the story of this game is. My understanding is that the story of
idea.
Mana games are also not very deep in the first place. It's like there's a tree, go to tree, and yeah, but the world is fun, the combat's fun, it's bright, it's colorful, it's vibrant. I think some of the class stuff is really really interesting. Being able to use different elements and then how those elements affect the way that your class plays and how you can affect those elements in battle. Everything about it just feels very like another I don't know, a friend of the show, we haven't had him on yet, but former coworker of mine, Timothy Momblo, was describing it as like the mid-budget comfort RPG, and I think
Which we
Visions of
need.
Mana sits like very squarely in that genre, in that designation.
What I find fascinating myself is that the characters that you see in the trailer, one's a boy, I can't remember his name, one's a girl, I can't remember her name, but they look very similar to the heroes from the very first Final Fantasy Adventure, quote unquote, slash Seiken Densetsu. And they travel together in the first game, or she gets kidnapped at some point, but they do travel a lot together. And Mana games tend to have sad endings because at the end of this game, spoiler, uh, the girl is part of the Mana tribe. She has to turn to the tree. The boy is the defender. He is basically, well, I lost the love of my life and I have to defend this tree for the rest of my life. So I don't know if they're going somewhere with that with the characters they have. It looks like they have a cute little cast. Like there's like a dragon girl with one wing. It's like, oh god, here comes another one-winged angel. But yeah, it seems like a lot of fun. I like the idea of a mid-tier RPG existing after all these huge AAA games plus all the layoff news. Let's let's take it easy for a bit here, people. Jesse, what did you think?
I'm in this like weird spot. So I have no familiarity with the Mana franchise. I've never played it. I'm aware of it. It's one of those games where every time I see it, I'm like, oh, I should probably get around to this series at some point, right?
Yeah.
I feel weird because I walked away from that demo feeling a lot of nothing. I
Oh
Mm.
was just like,
no, my precious mana.
yeah, I was like, the characters are cute. It's like bright. I thought the combat was like kind of stiff in a way that it's still a work in progress. Like the game's not coming out for a couple more months,
Yeah.
but it was one of those things where it's like coming off games like Tales of Arise and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and like these other sort of action RPGs that are very fluid and fast and sort of have a lot going on. I felt like
Mm,
Mana, like weirdly, there's just like a weight to the combat, but I'm not getting the feedback from the enemies when I'm hitting them. So it,
mm,
it doesn't feel good. It feels very slow and sluggish, but not in that like Monster Hunter sort of way where it's like, oh, everything has weight to it and it feels like you're really hitting. And then they had us like switch jobs. And so there was this cat boy and
yes.
Yo, Catboy's
uh
sick.
they had like two daggers and then their tail also was holding a dagger and I was like, oh, I got three daggers, this is cool. And it kind of played like the other class that I was playing with them and I was like, I'm not like, I got like a new ability and I was like, that's kind of cool, but I don't know, there's just something wasn't about it. Maybe the demo just wasn't great for showcasing like a wide breadth, but I don't know, it just kind of felt like this is something I'm not super into. Maybe I just don't like mana and like the mana sickos will come for me and that's okay. But I don't know. That demo just didn't really do it for me. It didn't give me a reason to like, this is where I got to jump in. This is the moment where I
Mm,
have to play
mm,
Mana. I
I
didn't get that from that demo.
I do think that's an interesting character to bring up because I think there were three classes that we could use total for that character in that demo, and two of them were both like using the daggers, and then the other one was using the sword. And I felt
Yeah.
like the weird part was, yeah, the dagger classes felt very similar, felt very
Hmm.
like, okay, you swapped like a little bit out, but really we're just kind of changing elemental affinities, and that's like what really changes here. Whereas the
right.
sword was like, it had some Virgil Devil May Cry type moves where he did the thing where he like kind of flicked his sword out from the sheath and then it did like
Yeah.
the slashes moving forward or whatever like Virgil always does. It was very very Virgil. Uh and that was kind of my experience with some of the other characters was if they swapped weapons, suddenly it felt like they played radically different. If they kind of stayed on the same weapon but changed elemental affinities, then it was like there's subtle differences, but not like huge obvious the way that like picking up a new weapon in Bloodborne is okay, now I'm playing a different game. I'm fighting a different fight now. So yeah, and to your point, Jesse, I would agree that if you're comparing this to Tales of Arise or Grand Blue is like a really good like recent comparison point because I think Grand
Yeah.
Blue. I was talking to John Carson about this. We should do an episode on Blood God about Grand Blue Fantasy Relink because I think that game is getting slept on. And every time I look at footage of it or talk to people who have played it, they're like, Grand Blue Relink, it's good stuff. So maybe we need
Yeah.
to do something with that. Maybe do a Blood God stream. I don't know. I'll think about this. But uh, those games have combat systems that are much more robust and
Hmm.
obviously robust, I think, where you have these kits that are wildly different. Everyone's kind of interacting with each other. I didn't get a whole lot of party interaction in Visions of
No.
Mana in the combat. It kind of just felt like everybody was hitting stuff. There was one character who had the moon globe that could like do the Dio Zawaldo and like freeze time in a
Yeah.
bubble and stuff like that. That was really useful, but otherwise, yeah, it was kind of just like we were fight. And again, it's I think it's important to stress that for me at least, I didn't think that was bad. It doesn't sound like you thought that was bad either, but it was just like not hitting peak action. I wasn't sitting there going like
Yeah.
I'm doing such cool stuff. It's more like, oh, yeah, okay.
I
Yeah,
think when
the
you bring back a franchise, right? like after it's been gone for because the last Mana game was a while ago, and that wasn't a remake. The last new Mana game was a decent chunk of
Over
time.
15 years ago is what they
Yeah.
kept
Yeah,
telling us. Yeah.
I feel like at least for me personally, like you got to bring something like new to the table. You got to like you'll be like, all right, this is why we're bringing it back, right? Like we got this grand idea, and that demo at least didn't showcase to me like, oh, I get no pun intended the vision.
Hmm.
And maybe that's just because it was a small vertical slice of a demo, like the larger game, like maybe the narrative is really what they're going for this time or something else. But for that little slice of that demo, I walked away like, oh, okay, it's like a neat little action RPG that just maybe not for me.
Yeah, Mana games tend to have heavier combat. Like I know in the first game, a lot of people aren't too fond of it because you swing your sword, whatever weapon, you wait for a few seconds for it to recharge, and then you hit it, you swing again for a full powered swing. Like otherwise, if you spam, you're just gonna do like 1 or 2 damage because you don't have that power in your swing. And I know the
Right.
first game has a lot of weight behind it, and I always enjoyed that about it, which is why I enjoy the combat. But yeah, I wish I'd gotten a chance to try Visions myself and just kind of judge from because if they give me like more of that weighty combat that I'm familiar with, because I think Trials was like that as well. I'm fine with that. I know it's not a Rise; it's just different. It's Mana.
I
Yeah.
think my main takeaway was I interviewed the series producer. You can check that out on Destructoid. But my main takeaway was that he stressed that this is a game that is made to kind of like try and capture the passion of Mana. Like this is very much a game made by a
Hmm.
longtime Mana fan for longtime Mana fans who have always kind of wanted a new game in this
Me.
series. So
Me.
I think that's going to end up being what this game is like it might not be like Tales of Arise was a game that was made to try and get new people into the Tales
Hmm.
series to like completely reinvent that series all over again. Visions of Mana feels like it's being made to capture the hearts of people who have just wanted this to happen for a long time. And it seems like it could do that, but also I think even now in the small, sample size that we have here, it might not always grab people who aren't already very on board for just a new Mana game on paper.
Yeah. And I think that's what I learned from this is like, oh, as somebody who is not a Mana fan, like maybe this isn't the entry point that I thought it might be. Maybe this is like, oh, this is for the fans. And that's cool. And I love when that stuff happens. I think I learned a lot about this game just from playing that like hour demo. It was like, oh, okay, I don't think this is for me, but it's cool that it exists.
I guess we'll see how it comes out. When is the release date? It said summer. I don't think
It's
they have a
summer. Yeah, some
no
point this
specific.
summer.
So it sounds like this will have a lot of time to kind of like give it that extra layer of polish. Who knows? They might like fine tune the combat a little bit.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm looking forward to it. So we will see what happens. Hey, you might like it too. Who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows?
it's certainly possible. I mean, it's a couple months, it's like 6 months away, maybe potentially something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, get that. Yeah. So that is it for our discussion about Dragon's Dogma 2 and Visions of Mana. Let us go on to some random encounters. Gearbox got sold by the Embracer Group. How much was that for again? That was
It
for
was over 400 mil, I think.
Or
From
60, I think.
Yeah,
yeah,
from Embracer to Take Two.
that's it. Yeah, so someone escaped Embracer, the embrace of Embracer, I suppose.
It's more like Embracer is falling apart, and
Yeah, yeah.
because like to
Ouch.
stress, these companies are getting sold, or they're getting laid off, or they're getting, in the case of Volition, like closed. Uh,
Yeah,
and as much as people were like, "Oh, cool, Gearbox is out from under Embracer," there were also layoffs at Gearbox that
right.
Yeah.
happened. So
What a mess.
Embracer leaving a permanent scar on the games industry.
I say this every week. I've been saying this every week for a while, but someone needs to go to jail over this. It'll
Yeah.
never happen. I wrote in the notes here, Larian says F you to Baldur's Gate and Lizards of the Coast, which
Uh,
is not F
to
you, but
to be clear,
it
yeah,
was amicable.
yeah. Is Wait, what did you just call Nadia? We gotta talk about pronunciation sometimes. First Balatro and now this. We gotta work on this. Baldur's Gate, basically Larian has been out there. It came out as part of a GDC talk, and then Sven Vinke was kind of out there like clarifying the thinking behind it. Balarian was basically saying like we're not doing Baldur's Gate 3 DLC, we're not doing Baldur's Gate 4, we're not doing D&D, like we're kind of moving on from
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate. We are doing something different. He would not confirm whether that was in the Divinity franchise or not. Sven, look, you've been on the show before. You might be watching Dragon Commander 2. I'm just saying, Dragon Commander 2.
I never played the original.
That's the problem. More people need to play Dragon Commander 1. But yeah, they were basically saying no more Baldur's Gate, all those characters, that world, that's all back in Wizards' hands, which, depending on how you feel about Wizards of the Coast, may be a good or bad thing. Me personally, I'm like a little bummed by it, but also Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are kind of, they're sequels to each other, but I think with especially how Baldur's Gate 3 was still within that continuity, but definitely very separate from it.
Yeah.
I think we can just leave it. I think it's fine. I think that is a very tight, contained, good game. We don't need to franchise it. Now, granted, it's in Wizards' hands now, so are we going to get some live service game with like Asterion skins and stuff like that? Who knows? Who's to
for
say?
sure.
Yeah.
We're going to get AI girlfriends with Shadowheart. She can come in and greet you every day.
Now, look, I'm normally against AI, but
I would like to have Shadowheart as a friend. Come in and hug her every day. That'd be nice. Celeste, the developers of Celeste are working on, I think it's called
Earthblade.
Earthblade, yeah, and that got delayed into next year. Kind of sad. I was
Yeah.
looking forward to that one.
Yeah, they're working hard on it, but they can't make it work for this year, so.
Yeah, well, always next year. And Eric, we should talk a bit about, well, all of us should talk about a little bit about Dawn Trail and the.
Oh, Jesse doesn't know anything about 14. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I thought you were a 14 head. I'm sorry.
Oh, get out of here.
This is another thing that Jesse put me onto that I get to then be like, oh, Jesse doesn't know anything about this. We're not going to talk about vinyl either.
We're not going to talk about vinyl. We're not going to
Well,
talk about
I don't know crap about vinyl.
Yeah, Pokemon cards completely out. We're not going to talk about those.
I don't think I got you into Pokemon cards. I'll let that one slide.
I got myself into Pokemon cards. Anyways, yeah, 14 Dawn Trail. They had a big PAX show that I think all three of us were in the audience for. That light was blinding.
That right in your eye, like Eric.
Did you put sunglasses on?
Surgery.
Yeah, I had sunglasses. I was hoping that
I
there
was
would
sitting
be
behind you too, so I couldn't see if you put the sunglasses on.
I had my sunglasses on. For those who have not been following the deep Blood God lore, I had eye surgery a couple weeks ago, and so I've been having to wear sunglasses when I'm outside or in situations that have bright lights, like maybe a PAX panel or something like that. So I was sitting there in the audience of this Dawn Trail thing, and they had like the house lights on just blaring down. And so like 5 minutes into it, I had like my eye covered like this for a bunch of it. And then I was just sitting there with sunglasses on, like, cool, neat. Y'all can turn the house lights off now. You don't need to see us. We're unimportant. We in the crowd are unimportant to what is happening right now.
No, they love to put the lights on us for some reason.
Yeah, I was being spotlit. It's like, hey, everyone, it's Nadia. Yay! And here's Eric. You put your shades on like Barrett from FF7 Rebirth.
Yeah, exactly.
Very topical.
Same
Every
way.
once in a while, I'd catch like a stray spotlight that would just like, oh.
Yeah. Imagine how that feels when your cornea is still healing.
Yikes.
So, we've got a funny message actually about Dawn Trails. It was supposed to come out the week of the Elden Ring DLC. It's like, yeah, we're gonna move this back, which is a really smart move.
They confirmed that they are moving, or they had moved Dawn Trail's launch so that people who want to play the Erdtree DLC can have a week to play the Erdtree DLC.
Yeah,
so
it's really so Yoshi P can play the Erdtree DLC.
Yes, yeah.
It's the same man that was playing Tears of the Kingdom during a live letter. He wants to play. He wants to play.
He's like, you get 1 week.
One week.
1 week. And we're getting FF16, an event in there, which means we get the Torgal as a mount. And I think, is there a minion? I can't remember what else we get from the 16.
I don't know if they've shown anything else off besides Torgal and the Ifrit fight. They haven't shown the fight, but they've shown like that's kind of where it's going. I imagine it'll be kind of similar to the 15 event where like it's you get the mount for completing the quest and like maybe some cosmetics, and then they'll have that like weird thing you can kind of like event that you can like loop to then give currency to like buy some additional
Yeah,
goodies.
there's like orchestra rolls and I think and
Yeah,
whatnot, make music, and there's probably costumes, hairstyles, the usual
yeah,
kind of stuff. I remember doing the same event for FF15 because I wanted Noctis's hairstyle, and that
yeah.
was like a lot of work at the Gold Saucer. And then I got it, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. It just did not fit my Warrior of Light. But I got it there if he ever wants to pretend to be Noctis. I like Noctis. I always liked his design, like
Yeah.
broody little boy.
I'm a
Yeah.
15 apologist.
Oh,
I'll
good,
defend that game. I love
good.
15.
I know it had problems, but I appreciate that. Yeah, Lanceheart, Baby Torgal better be a minion.
I
There's a scene
think Baby
in the
Torgal is a
video.
minion. I think Baby Torgal is a minion. I'm
Yeah,
double
because there's a scene in
checking. I'm making
in
sure.
the trailer where like one girl's like, "Yay!" and she's on top of the Torgal mount, and there's a guy looking at a little tiny wolf, and he's just shrugging. And I'm guessing that's the
No, that might
Torgal
be the
minion.
minion. Yeah.
It looks really
Um,
cute.
I just hope that Torgal
Yeah,
transforms when he flies. That's what I want.
Into a
yeah.
mech, a wolf mech.
To a mech. Yeah.
No, and in a different way. If you've played
If
16,
you played
you'll know.
16.
Yeah, those who know. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Dawn Trail. I like used
Hmm.
that whole PAX panel as an excuse to get back into 14 and start catching up. I'm finally patch current. I was still at the end of 6.5 where I was. I had to do like the final trial and stuff like that. But like 14, it's weird because like our pal Moises is finally getting to Shadowbringers, and I'm thinking about the way that
Oh,
I felt when I was getting to Shadowbringers in 14 and what an incredible experience that was.
it was.
I'm not expecting that from Dawn Trail, but
Mm,
I do feel like I'm in the right mood for just a very fun, light 14 expansion pack that isn't super like there's almost something appealing about the fact that this is not going to be tied into some broad narrative that's going to be really heavy and emotional and stuff like that. That there will probably be some twists and turns, but so far they're just kind of making it seem like it's a beach episode. Everybody's having fun, doing stuff, doing
That's
some
how they lure
light.
you into a false sense of security.
Yeah,
That's how they
true,
yeah,
but
do it.
you're right.
Shadowbringers and Endwalker, like I cried through the last six of Endwalker. I didn't
Yeah.
stop. So I'm kind of ready to not cry. Or, I still cry a little bit, but not through the whole
Lightly
thing.
cry.
Not through a whole
Lightly cry.
map.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Slightly cry.
it's that quote that Yoshida had brought up at the end of Endwalker, right? It's like, okay, we gotta pull the power scale back. We
Yeah.
gotta like bring us back down now. Like Endwalker ends like in the most anime inspired way possible, right? It's just like, all right, we're gonna keep escalating and escalating and escalating. And now Dawn Trail's like, all right, we gotta. I mean, even the post patches for this, for the most part, like brought it back. It's like, let's buy a treasure map and go on an adventure. And it's like,
Yeah.
we saw
It
where
was
that got
fun.
us.
I
Yeah,
liked it. I
and I
love
think
Final
Dawn Trail
Fantasy
will do that.
IV, so
Yeah.
everything there was FF4. I'm good. I'm just drooling. I'm eating it all up. The music for the other moon, the red moon. Oh
Oh,
God.
so good.
Their remixes. But yeah. Anyway, that's I suppose that's all the news that's fit to talk about, unless I
Oh,
missed
oh,
something here.
the
Wait.
16 DLC, like the actual 16 DLC, also got announced. The
Oh,
Rising
okay.
Tide. Yeah, I'm
That's
actually
right.
really
The
looking
Leviathan.
forward to this. It looks really really good. I am a 16 defender on here. I like that game, and the Leviathan stuff. I love Leviathan as a summon, as a character. I'm really happy that they're including Leviathan. They found this way to basically like give Clive a gun in that game,
Yeah.
so it's gonna play even more Devil May Cry, and all the stuff they're doing with that form, with the new area looks really really cool, really pretty. And also they're adding like a roguelike mode and stuff like that for even more
Yeah.
Yeah.
challenge. So it seems like a really robust update. Like I've said that multiple times now. I don't know why the word robust is stuck in my head, but it looks like a really solid update and a really like meaty update for Final Fantasy 16. And then obviously the PC version is coming down the pipe at some point. And I got to interview Yoshida and some of the others who were working on that game, and they did not confirm anything, but they were like, once we finish the PC version and the DLC, you know, we would like to continue to expand. And that was kind of where they left it. They were just like, we'd like to continue to bring this to more players. So Who's to
Final
say? Who's
Fantasy
to say?
16 Neo Geo. Let's go.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Now there's a fit.
There's also the free update that they're putting out, which I thought was pretty neat, that they kind of glossed over a little bit during the presentation. But it was like they're adding like 40 orchestrion roles, and they're
Yes.
doing the whole like you can remap all the buttons on the controller, which like IMO should have been there earlier, but
Yeah.
like it's I'm glad that they're putting that in now. And they were like, oh, and a bunch more stuff that we're not going to talk about right now, but like when the
Mm.
patch notes go up. So like on top of the DLC, there's also this free patch that's coming out that sounds like it's adding a ton of stuff
Hmm.
and like to maybe rebalance. They specifically said we're rebalancing, we're not nerfing some of the abilities. So there's like that stuff coming in the pipeline too, which is interesting. I'm always fascinated by major patches for single player games and like what they decide to do or add. So
Yeah.
16's getting a lot this month.
Yeah, good for it. Good for 16. I haven't played it yet. I will. I promise. And I guess that's it for the news. So why don't we roll into the tavern and talk a bit about what we are playing, what we are watching, whatever we are doing. Eric, you're not feeling well. Why don't you go first?
What?
I don't know.
I'm once again in that place where I can't really talk much about. You know what I can't talk about? I was going to talk about just manga that I've been reading because I'm in that place where I can't talk about games that I've been playing or whatever. But
Yeah.
I will say, quick shout out. I started reading on the plane back. They gave me the option. I had to fly. Okay, side tangent. I had to fly for my flight back from PAX, Boston to Atlanta, and then Atlanta to Austin, which is basically almost 2 3 hour flights. I think it's like
Yeah.
two and a half,
That's
two
rough.
and a half. On the second flight, they gave me the option for a very reasonable price to upgrade to first class, and so I was like,
Ooh,
I think I'm doing it. I haven't flown first class since I was in like high school.
beautiful.
I gotta do it. Y'all, they live different at the front of the
Yeah,
plane. They
they do.
they
They do.
really live different. They were like, here's your comfy seat with all your leg room. Would you like a drink, sir? And then I
Yes.
finished my Diet Coke, and they were like, would you like another Diet Coke? And I was like, yes, I would. And
Please.
uh,
Please.
it was wild. So I stayed awake. I slept the whole time on the first plane because I was just exhausted. So I did the classic like head against the plane wall. So
Hmm.
if that had blown off, I would have just died.
Whee!
But
You wouldn't have had an idea.
second flight. Oh, I think I would have woken up at some point, Nadia. Uh, second flight, I was like, I'm in first class. I gotta stay awake the whole time. So I
Yeah, of course.
started. I put the March Madness. It was the women's March Madness game. I think Iowa versus West Virginia, which is very fun to watch. And then I pulled up some manga on my tablet. I started reading Naoki Urasawa's 20th Century Boys, and
That's
that
such a
manga, it
good
goes so
manga.
hard. It's so
Oh,
good.
I
It's
love that manga.
excellent. It is.
Friend.
It's really so I knew of Naoki Urasawa because of Pluto and the Netflix
Yes.
series, and I really got into it. I loved it. I thought it was really fantastic. This one is a lot of the same art and even kind of like some of the same vibes, but a very different kind of tale, different setting where you are following these this group of boys that grew up in the 20th century. So I think they were all born and were growing up in like the 90s. I want to say
Yeah.
no, it's current time is 90s, so they were growing up in the 70s. Very Stand By Me vibes
Very,
at times,
very Stephen King vibes from this guy. Yeah.
where they're all kind of like doing stuff and hanging out and just getting up to like the kind of hijinks that you would before the internet existed and stuff like that. So they're riding their bikes everywhere, and there's kind of these like inner cliques and stuff like that. So they're like the mean boys who bully everybody and stuff like that. And in the present time, they're trying to figure out why people are being killed because there are
Hmm.
basically like murders happening that have weird ties to the boys' past. And it's such a masterful, like they make the timeline swapping and all that feel completely normal. I think I've been very burned out on this sort of like mystery box story because I was watching Westworld obviously like burned me out after the first season. I was
Mm.
watching Three Body Problem on Netflix and not really vibing with it because it felt like the only substance I was getting from it was like, what could possibly be happening next? This is weird, isn't it? I wasn't getting a lot from like the character writing or anything. 20th Century Boys, complete opposite, where it feels like the mystery
Right.
just enhances the relationships between these characters, like the ways in which this manga talks about growing up and getting
Hmm.
older and the things that these characters have dealt with, and even just the idea of like one main character feels very much like, are you the person that you thought you would be when, when you were younger? Like, okay, you're in your 30s now. Do you think you're the person you thought you would become? And as somebody in their 30s now, boy, does that hit like a brick truck. Like, ooh. So 20th Century Boys, incredible. Very, very good. I'll also shout out a few PAX East games I played. Urban Myth Dissolution Center is a very fun point and click adventure that's very pixel art, gorgeous pixel art. It has a lot of, you're kind of investigating these cryptids and stuff like that in natural life and using like social media to kind of track them down and find them. It's a really cool idea. The demo didn't give me a great idea of what the loop feels like, but
Right.
the pixel art's gorgeous. I think you'll see this and immediately be like, oh yeah, cool. It had big World of Horror vibes at times, which is why I
Hmm.
really gravitated towards it. I also want to shout out friends of the pod. I don't have the dev names in front of me. I'm so sorry, but there's a game called Forge of the Fae that is very Breath of Fire
Ooh.
inspired RPG, and
A
it
plus
just
plus
looks
plus plus plus.
absolutely gorgeous. It looks incredible. I think the battle systems are really neat. They were showing off several different RPGs. There's one called, I believe it's called Quartet or Quintet. I'm so sorry. It's just one of those two. I'm blanking and I'm very tired. And also Unfamiliar was the other one that was in the PAX Rising area. But Forge of the Fae is the one that I think I really connected with the most. I saw it and just immediately the look of it, the way it played, the way it just looked like Breath of Fire was
Does it have the
immediately
isometric
hitting.
battles?
Yes, yeah, the
Yeah,
isometric
yeah, yeah.
battles, the
I
even the
missed
way
that
the
somehow.
menus pop up on the characters felt very like throwback in a way that I really enjoyed. So yeah, I love that. I'm pulling up my notes now to see if I had any more games that I played and wanted to take note of to mention later. Lucid, always very good. Lucid is a solid Metroidvania that I think if you like Celeste and stuff like that, you should keep an eye on Lucid. Heartworm is a very like throwback PS1 survival horror Silent Hill type game. Very,
Hmm.
very good. And Throne of Bone is one that
Throne of Bone.
I
It's a
kind of
great
just
name.
went to it because I was like, the name's fun and the game looks fun, but it's like a deck builder slash auto battler where you play as a necromancer that's building this army of like ghosts and undead and fungus and stuff like that. And it's just got a good vibe. The battle systems feel very good. The synergy stuff feels really, really good. I've played a lot of deck builders and a lot of auto
Hmm.
battlers. And so trust me when I say that I've played so many of them and they all run together so much that this one still sticks out to me a week later having played it. It's worth keeping an eye on. I think they have an early access coming up soon, so you should keep an eye out for that if you want something to kind of deck build and auto battle with, because it just feels like a game where you could do that sort of one more run and get really, really caught up in it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I'm definitely looking forward to Forge of the Fae. I will have to go back and put another eye on that one. Jesse, how about you? Anything cool to share? Share, show and tell?
Uh, I, sh- so at PAX East, I only played two games. It was Visions of Mana, and I did the Final Fantasy 14 Battle Challenge. And we won. We got our
Oh, you got
T-shirts.
your shirts. You
We
beat
got our
Ashura.
shirts. But outside of that, I've restarted Final Fantasy 9
Oh, okay.
with all the 14 Dawntrail stuff being like very 9 inspired. I was like,
Hmm.
I haven't played 9 in like 12 years. I should go back and just refamiliarize myself with it. I'm only like 2 or 3 hours in, not very far in it, but man, I love the opening to Final Fantasy 9. I really
So
do.
good.
It's
I
so
love
good.
the play with the music and everything.
You get to play as Vivi, Steiner, and Zidane like all within like 30 minutes, and it's like each one of those sections is so fun. It's a good time. But not much to talk about there. It's Final Fantasy 9. That game is good. If you haven't played it, play it. And I started Stardew Valley for the first time yesterday.
Cool.
Never played it before. I've heard a million things about it. Decided to hop in. That game is so cozy. I understand it. I get why people love that thing so much. Excited to go back to my farm and make more parsnips or whatever I'm growing right now.
Do the parsnips,
Um,
then the money's in cattle.
Yeah. So people in my chat were telling me like, "Oh, you should have got the farm with the chickens. You should have got the chicken coop." I'm like, I just picked the basic farm. I don't know
Oh,
anything about this game. How would I know that that's what I need? People are like, when do you start making like mead? And I'm like, I got like 4 parsnips and like I haven't even met everyone in the town yet. Y'all need to chill and let me just
you'll have plenty of time to
get
do
there.
everything you want. Don't worry about
Yeah,
that.
I'm like the first weekend of Stardew. But other than that, yeah, it's just been 14 really. That's kind of my constant always. Looking forward to checking out Pepper Grinder though. That game is probably high up on my list of things to finally get to.
Awesome. Uh, as for myself, yeah, I mentioned I'm playing Dragon's Dogma 2. I finished FF7 Rebirth. We have to have a conversation about that ending sometime.
Yeah.
And
We
I
will
guess
have a conversation about that ending sometime.
I will mention since I have a short flight down to Boston from Toronto, I kind of had to divide my movie watching into two pieces. So I started on Five Nights at Freddy's and I ended on it too. And it was kind of a funny, cute,
I liked it.
horrible movie. I loved it. Like it
It's
knew what
campy.
it was. It's extremely campy. I
And
mean,
Matthew Lillard is so good in that movie. I was
he's
just
so
like,
great.
yeah, he's so good.
And I'm just like, okay, I was an 80s kid. I went to Chuck E. Cheese. I have this vivid memory of there being broken glass on the floor and being warned to stay away from it. And like, they shut down like my favorite little tunnel thing because of the broken glass, and I was angry. But to me, like the place always had a weird, sinister vibe that I loved because my brother would go there for his birthday parties and whatnot. And yeah, just the sight of seeing like animatronics dancing to like 80s music, it's like, oh man, it's a nostalgia hit that you're not going to get back anytime soon. But they did a great job on those mechs. Like
Yeah.
the story's stupid, but I think for video game movies to succeed, they have to be honest about what they are. Five Nights at Freddy's has a lot of weird ass lore that they kind of touch on in the movie, but if they had gone into it, you're gonna lose everybody
Yeah.
because people want to see mechs eating people. Like I don't know what people
Yeah.
go in there for, but yeah, it was fun. It knew exactly what it was, and sometimes that's all I want out of movies. Like I even like Super Mario Brothers, the new one, because it's like, okay, Mario, Luigi, Princess, Toad, we're all going to rescue the Mushroom Kingdom, and people say, oh, the first one's so much better, it's so much more creative. Yeah, but it's not a Mario movie. I came out of that as a kid saying, what the fuck was that? I don't understand. I I liked it for what it was, but it's just like that was not Mario. If I was a kid and I had been given the choice of those two movies, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to the Illumination one. I don't care. That's what I want for
Exactly.
a Mario movie. But yeah, so Five Nights at Freddy's, not bad.
I I'm just adding a clarification for those at home. Spyrus on the Twitch chat has been very helpful in locating the actual names of these games and developers, and I want to shout them out both because they're great folks and also because my sick addled brain I would feel bad if I got the shout outs wrong. So it's My Familiar, Forge of the Fae, and Quartet. They are all by different publishers and developers, but my understanding is that a lot of the teams and the people involved are the same. They're just kind of all under different team names, but they were all showing at PAX East. They all look very good in their own ways. Go check them out. Super
That's
Mario.
awesome. Super Mario. Thank you, Spyrus. And I really love. Is that like an Alexander emoji, like from Elden Ring, the jar guy?
I think it is.
It's very cute. His name was Alexander, right?
Sure. I think
I
so.
that sounds right, but in
I
my
just
head I was
remember
like, wait, does the pod have the same name as the thing from Final Fantasy?
A to the E to the EXander. God, he's gonna rise up, boom like thunder. Yeah, it's I love the little pot guys. I love the little one who said like, "Cuz, hey, cuz, what you doing
He
here,
does.
cuz?"
Iron Fist Alexander. I never thought about that they have the same name. That's wild. What if you fought an
Yeah, no
Alexander-sized
other
Alexander?
Alexanders. No
I
other
couldn't.
There's
Alexanders in the
no other
world.
Alexes in the world.
I
Definitely not
couldn't.
great ones.
Definitely not
You
my
know.
nephew.
Did I ever tell you about the time my family was banned from our local Chuck E. Cheese?
Yes,
I don't
please
know if
tell
now
me.
is now. I don't know if now
What?
is the time to tell that story, but I
Yes, it
can.
is.
Because we were talking about Chuck E. Cheese Five Nights.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, you know how they have those like tubes that like the kids can like crawl through and like you go down
Yeah,
the slide and the ball pit and all that.
yeah.
Uh, I was probably like 6 or 7, so my brother was like 3, 4 maybe. And I'm there with like my cousins, and we're all crawling through the tube. And my one cousin loved to egg my brother on and loved to just get him to do dumb stuff. And he's like, "What if you took all your clothes off?" What if you just crawled through the tube naked? Wouldn't that be really funny?
It'd be
And so
great.
my brother crawled through the tube naked and pressed himself up against like the clear like part of the tube where like the you could like see out to the thing. And the Chuck E. Cheese employees were like, "You have to leave and you can never come back.
You can never.
You can
I,
never come back."
I'm sorry. How old is your brother? 3.
My brother was like 4 at the time or 3, and like my cousin was like 6 or 7 maybe. Like it was just like them like, "Oh, you wouldn't like crawl through the tube naked, would you? That'd be so funny." And then my brother was like, "Bet," and then just did it. And then we were banned from our local Chuck E. Cheese,
Are
which
you?
is like
Is your brother?
fair.
Is he okay? Like,
Oh, he's
is he less?
fine. Yeah, he's great.
So he's not
I
as
mean, he still
suggestive these
does.
days.
Oh no, you could probably. My brother still is like, you could probably convince him to do something stupid, but
Go
that
back to
was.
Chuck E. Cheese as an adult. Go to
I just
jail.
remember my mom being like mortified, being like, "No, what are you doing?" And then like having to like get him out of the tube because that was the other part of it was that he just kept crawling around, and so yeah, we were banned from our local Chuck E. Cheese,
God,
and
it's
that's
like
what
you get.
inspired Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Good lord, just like picturing that Simpsons episode with Willie greased up going through. Grease me up, woman. God, what a story. That's hilarious. I always thought, even though I'm not exactly unhappy that it didn't have kids, I thought it'd be kind of fun to have kids sometimes because they do
Mhm.
something stupid like that, and just like I can picture your mother like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, yeah, because my mom has no idea. She's just like down there with like the other adults, and she's just like looking up. She's like, "Oh, isn't that?" She's like, "Oh, that's my son. We have to
I,
go get him."
how
What
had
fucked
that
up kid is that?
not That's such an extreme reaction? Like, had there not been a kid that just ran naked through the Chuck E. Cheese like pit before? Like, I
So they didn't like take our picture or like
I
like write
hope
our
not.
names down.
I
They were
hope
just like, "You can never come back here." Like that was probably just a disgruntled employee
Okay,
saying
okay,
that.
yeah.
But my mom took it as like both she's mortified, so she like doesn't want to show her face at the
I
local
wouldn't
Chuck
come
E. Cheese
back.
again, which like I get. And two, she was like, "We can never take your brother to Chuck E. Cheese again. He can never come back."
Wow. Okay, we got the sequel for Five Nights at Freddy's. We got the script for Five Nights at Freddy's too. Everyone, look forward to it. So,
Oh.
that was a hell of a story. As Nigel says here, it's kind of a bonus pit because I'm supposed to move on and give my little
I
story,
was gonna
but
say,
I really
Nadia,
like
take us home? Question mark.
Take Us Home. I'm Ron
Y'all
Burgundy.
wanted to hear the story.
It's a good
I
story.
said,
No, I'm glad I heard that story. That's pretty
Don't
freaking
pawn that
fantastic.
off. There was such a quick turnaround from you want to hear about the time we got banned for the Chuck E. Cheese to here's how we got banned for the Chuck E. Cheese. Like,
I
it
didn't say,
was.
"Do you want to hear?" I said I once got banned from the local Chuck E. Cheese, and then you were like, "Oh, tell us." And I was like, "You sure? I don't know if now's the time." And you were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I was like,
I'm gonna,
"Okay."
I'm gonna check the tape on that one.
That
I think I said, "Did I ever tell y'all about the time I got banned from my family got banned from the local Chuck E.
It's a
Cheese?"
different tone. There's a different tone.
It wasn't like I'm gonna tell you. It was like you were like, "Oh, tell us, please, let us know how you got
if you're
banned
gonna
from the local
say
Chuck
that
E.
I
Cheese."
got banned from a children's entertainment venue and you say, "Do you want to hear how?" I'm going to say yes every single time. Like there is no question here. So you could have phrased it however you wanted it. I would have heard the story, and yeah,
I knew
that
my
was.
audience. I knew my
There you
audience.
go. See, you're smart. What a great story. I love that, and I don't really have anything to compare with it because I'm thinking about. I have a smaller pit where I had to deal with Canadian Customs,
I do want to
who
hear this.
Well, the way Pearson Airport is organized now is that like since I'm a citizen, I come home and I have like a very very quick process to get through, and I'm waiting in the line, and there's only me, so that's always dangerous because the customs officer is going to keep you there and talk to you, and he did. So he looks at my passport and he looks at me and looks at my jacket because I'm wearing my FF16 jacket, and he says, "If it's called Final Fantasy, why are there 16 entries?" I'm like, "Oh dear Christ, I can't." This is
The most
if
Jerry
it's
Seinfeld voice. Why do they call him Final Fantasy?
It's just the most like when you work in retail and it doesn't ring up, an item doesn't ring up, it must be free. Yeah, first time I heard the
Mm.
joke, brilliant. But you can't tell a customs officer to go F themselves because you're going to have a problem. So I don't know what I said. I just like laughed, ha ha ha, and said like, I did tell him the story about like, why is Final Fantasy? Why is it called that? And I think that might be wrong, but I don't care anymore. And yeah, he started talking about Roblox. I'm like, I don't know, yeah, Roblox spy. So that was
What a
my
pivot.
encounter.
Final Fantasy? Yeah, yeah. Let me tell you about Roblox. It's like what?
Did he
Yeah, it
like
was a weird
play?
jump.
Was he like trying to get you to play Roblox, or was he just like,
He's
yo, I
just like,
played
I
on
don't
Roblox?
understand. My son's really into Roblox. The
Oh,
graphics
okay.
suck. Like, I'm like, yeah, actually, you're right. The graphics do suck for Roblox, but kids, I think it's fascinating that kids aren't into graphics the way we are.
I like to think the customs person was like trying to get people to join their Roblox server. It's like, all right, you want to join my Roblox
Join
server?
my Christian Minecraft server, please.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
No swearing. Yeah, I still like I told this as a pit before, but it was hilarious when I was still grooming animals, dogs, and I was writing about the Nintendo DS. I was kind of starting. I was doing both at the same time, and I came through what customs for God. It was E3 2006, and the guard was like, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I write about video games and I groom dogs. And he said, oh, I bet there's not a game about dog grooming. And I said, yes, there is. It's called Nintendo Dogs. He's just like, get out of here.
Leave.
Just go. So
Never
yeah, that
come
was
back again.
you're banned from Canada. You have to live in the airport, Nadia. Oh, so yeah, that was basically our show for today. It sure was a thing, wasn't it? And I appreciate you all putting up with me and poor Eric, who's got to have like the scratchiest ass throat in existence right about now. And
Try not
he's
to think
nodding.
about it. Try not to think
He,
about it.
we're almost at the end, Eric. We're gonna move on to our post show with the Stars of
I'll
Destiny,
get to
and
talk more.
yeah, we're gonna talk some more, but you can talk about nonsense. It's a little bit different. And I want to thank our Stars of Destiny for supporting us at the $25 level and for joining us for the pre-show and the post-show. We have Anthrax B is Bees Azixa, Drew, Eric, you're here, Sardin, Flashback 2012, Harvest Lunatic, Jesse, that's you, Kara, Laguna Matata, Nuclear Sandwich, Spooky Man BR, Spyrus, and Teeps, who helped us out a lot today, as did Spyrus. Thank you both. Thank you all for coming. And yeah, and guess if you like us, please support us at the Patreon that we have. It is patreon.com/bloodgod.com. Yeah, no, sorry.
Patreon.com
Patreon.com/bloodgod.
slash bloodgodpod.
You'll figure it out. You're smart. Yeah, so that will be all for us here, and from myself and from Eric and from Jesse. Thank you for listening and happy adventuring.